Have you ever wondered how a gigantic company, a huge corporation, actually stays honest? Well, there's a special department that acts as its conscience, kind of like its own internal detective agency. It's called Internal Audit. And yeah, I know, it might sound a little dry, but trust me, it's one of the most critical functions in the entire corporate world. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and really dig into what these folks do.
So let's just start with a really basic question. Picture a massive global company. We're talking hundreds of offices, thousands of employees, millions, maybe billions of transactions every single day. How on earth does a company that big check its own work? How does it make sure that tiny little mistakes don't snowball into absolute disasters? That's the core problem that internal audit is here to solve.
And the answer? Well, it's all laid out in this blueprint right here. This flowchart maps out the entire world of internal audit, and it's going to be our roadmap for this whole explainer. We're going to walk through it piece by piece to see exactly how these huge companies hold up a mirror to themselves.
Okay, so to really get the how, we first have to understand the why. So let's kick things off at the very top with our first section, corporate governance. Or to put it another way, why companies even need that mirror in the first place.
Before we can even talk about auditing, we've got to talk about the world it lives in, and that's corporate governance. You can basically think of it as the company's master rulebook. It's the whole system, all the rules, the practices, the processes that guides a company and keeps it under control, making sure it stays on the right path.
And this is exactly where internal audit comes into play. It's a huge part of good governance. Why? Well, because it acts like a regular health checkup for the business. It helps spot operational weaknesses before they turn into full-blown crises. It makes sure the company is following all the complicated laws and regulations. It helps manage major business risks, and ultimately, it just makes the whole operation run smoother and better.
So we get why it's important. But who are these internal auditors, really? This brings us to something a lot of people get mixed up, which we're going to clear up right now in Section 2. The big difference between the inside eyes and the outside eyes.
Now check this out, because it lays it out so clearly. On one side, you've got your internal auditor. They're an employee of the company. They report directly to management or the board, and their main job is to look at the guts of the company, the operations, and the risks. Then you have the external auditor. They're totally independent outsiders, and they're hired to give an opinion on the company's financial statements for the shareholders. So completely different jobs for completely different audiences.
But, being an inside eye isn't always a walk in the park. There are some serious limitations. I mean, imagine your job is to review your boss's department, but your boss is the one who decides what you're allowed to look at. That's the challenge right there. Their scope is set by management, which can create some awkward pressure, and yeah, sometimes their findings can just be flat out ignored. It's a really delicate balancing act.
So, because of all those internal pressures, a lot of companies start asking themselves a pretty big question. Does this job have to be done by one of our own employees? And that leads us right into Section 3, the outsourcing question. This is when companies decide it might be time to hire some outside help.
And yeah, it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. When a company outsources its internal audit, it's hiring an external firm, usually a big accounting or consulting firm that specializes in this stuff, to come in and do all the work that an in-house department would normally handle.
So why on earth would a company do this? Well, this slide shows it's a real double-edged sword. On the plus side, you get instant access to incredible specialized skills, a totally fresh and objective perspective, and sometimes it's even cheaper. But the downside? That outside team isn't going to know your company's culture. There can be potential conflicts of interest, and you're literally handing over super sensitive company data to a third party. Big trade-offs.
All right, so whether they're in-house employees or outsourced pros, what do these auditors actually do all day? I promise you, it's way more than just crunching numbers in a dark room somewhere. In our fourth section, let's explore the surprisingly diverse world of what they work on.
Okay, a huge part of their job is the operational audit. You can just think of this as the grand efficiency check. They'll go deep into the day-to-day processes, and they're asking questions like, hey, is there a smarter, faster, or cheaper way to do this? Where are things getting stuck?
Next up, something that is absolutely non-negotiable in our digital world, the IT audit. Here, they're basically digital detectives. They're testing the company's defenses, asking the tough questions. Are we safe from hackers? Is our customer data locked down tight? Can we actually rely on our tech? And sometimes they have to put on their detective hats for real. If there's even a whisper of something shady going on, like fraud or corruption, internal audit is the team that gets called in to quietly investigate, follow the money, and find out what really happened.
It's not always about finding problems, though. Sometimes it's about finding value. With a value for money audit, the question changes. It's not just, did we follow the rules? It's, did we get the best possible bang for our buck? They're looking for smart spending and real results.
And check this one out, because this might surprise you. Modern internal audit isn't just looking inwards anymore. They are now doing customer experience reviews, digging into whether the company's processes are actually creating happy, loyal customers. It just goes to show how much this field has grown beyond the old stereotypes.
So after all that digging, all that investigating and analyzing, what happens next? I mean, it's not enough to just find problems, you have to fix them. And that brings us to what is maybe the most important step of all, in Section 5, reporting the findings, or as I like to call it, delivering the diagnosis.
The whole process is actually very structured. First, the auditors write up their draft findings. Then, and this part is key, they sit down with the management of the department they just looked at to talk about it. No surprises. After everyone's on the same page, a final official report goes to the top leadership. But it doesn't stop there. The most important step is the last one. Management has to create an action plan and agree to concrete steps to fix every single issue that was found.
In this quote, man, it just hits the nail on the head. A good audit report is never about pointing fingers or placing blame. It's a constructive tool. Its whole purpose is to provide a clear path forward so the entire organization can learn and get better.
So when you put it all together, what really is internal audit? Well, it's the organization's mirror, forcing it to take a hard, honest look at itself. It's the conscience, always asking if it's doing the right thing. And it's the personal doctor, diagnosing problems before they can become fatal.
So there you have it. That's a blueprint of internal audit, that vital, often invisible function that keeps our biggest companies in check. But I am going to leave you with one final question to chew on. If internal audit is the organization's conscience, who audits the auditors?